Hey, folks, are you ready to take your stand-up paddleboarding to the next level? If so, then you want to take a look at the PSUPA, the Professional Stand-Up Paddle Association. Rob Casey wrote the very first book on stand-up paddle instruction, and he's been teaching SUP and kayak for over 20 years. Tell you, this guy, you hear us quote him a lot on our show. He has a serious emphasis on water safety and, SUP as a business. SUP is a business. And, this guy can give you the skills that you need to succeed. Whether you want to start a SUP business or you just want to supercharge your own skills in water safety, then you need to check him out. Go to www.psupa.com. psupa.com. Thank you. Oh, man, hey, this is Daryl Kirk with Stand Up Paddle the World Radio, man, and I am super stoked, man. We got a brother here that, resides in both Hawaii and also, in our neck of the woods here, down south, a southern brother down in Tacoma area, Federal Way, Washington, and, Dash Point State Park and the ocean down there that he grew up on, the Puget Sound. But, Kaliko Kahunui, and really stoked to talk to this guy that's not too far from me here, about 30 minutes away. Now he's living out in San Diego, but he grew up, out in the Tacoma area, Federal Way. But man, when this dude was 5 years old, he was learning about the tides and the rip currents and, got respect from the ocean from his dad, in Hawaii, out in Oahu, man, and, Rusty and Brian Kealuna and Bruce DeSoto, he grew up with these guys, man. He was a young kid growing up, seeing all of this stoke out on the water. His dad is also a good waterman, man. A very good waterman, and I'm really looking forward to talking to this guy. And we also, when he was here in Washington, squidding, fishing for squid and crabbing at night in the Puget Sound, which we all love out here. And man, this cat, he caught his first tanker wave when he was 12 years old on a boogie board. Again, down there at Dash Point State Park, which is near Tacoma, Washington, Federal Way. But anyway, man, can't wait to talk to this dude. And we're going to get right into this guy on a article that he wrote. And, and it was just real clear and resounding and really had something to it. And it's called The SUP Industry Exposed. And he gets right into this Pacific Paddle Games that has just ended, the old BOP, that kind of deal, our biggest event of the year. And this is a real timely thing, man, to hear him talking about this because, we are seeing a crisis in the SUP industry and in SUP racing, which we all so dearly love. And we've all been talking about it. And I've talked to some pros about this that, are getting ready to pull the plug too and talk about this. But, man, I'll tell you, my man here is ready to go, and I want to talk to him about this. But, man, I got to get out of here. Kaliko, man, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, you bet, man. Hey, I can't wait to talk to you about you and your epic life and your family and your dad and these, epic people that you grew up with in Hawaii, and also, anyway, but let's hear about you, man. Tell me about this whole thing, man. The SUP Industry Exposed. What did you see out there this year at the Pacific Paddle Games?
Yeah, so really it started back about a month ago when I went to a paddle sports retailer show.
Okay.
In Wisconsin, and I saw brands that I have never heard of before, and it was just something like probably 50 people came the first morning, and it was just like nobody showed up, and it got everybody kind of thinking like, okay, well, we thought SUP was going to be super popular, but here we are with all these, there was like 50 different brands, but nobody showing up to see them. And so I just kind of thought that, me loving stand-up paddleboarding, I just thought it was weird. I was super stoked to be at a real show, but the numbers just didn't seem that good for what I thought it was going to be, because Starboard was there, Seaford Waterman, and a lot of other bigger brands. And then I kind of have that feeling in the back of my mind, and then went to Pacific Paddle Games, and it just compared to the previous years, it just felt so lackluster. And again, like, it's not like I'm trying to talk bad about, you know, the sport that I love, but it seemed so like so scripted, and just it was like the same old characters, and overall it just felt like there wasn't a crowd anymore, and kind of the excitement of it, like, just kind of felt like it was fading. So that just kind of, you know, just kind of prompted me to write just a little. I mean, it was only like 2 paragraphs, but it got a lot of response really quick. So
it really did. People from Europe and, you know, bunch of different replies. Guy from Germany, a bunch of different. It was really clear. You know, it was kind of a beacon. You know, what you wrote, and just got a dialogue started anyway.
Yeah, really. And for the most part, a lot of the feedback was super positive. There's, I mean, a couple people, I don't remember specifically, but they thought that I was just trying to, like, bash the event, or, you know, like, talk down about the industry. It's not, I mean, SUP Industry Exposed wasn't to talk bad about paddleboarders or paddleboarding. It was literally just the business side of it. And it just seemed that, like, I'm just saying that the market should dictate where all these brands are going, and it just seems like the purity and, like, kind of the natural, like, ebb and flow and kind of the growth that paddleboarding has had is kind of just plateauing, as far as being like a business thing. So when you have companies, you know, dumping all their money into big pro events, and then when you have them making, you know, a warehouse full of boards, and then they realize, oh, well, not everybody is going to be able to paddle a board 23 inches wide, and then they're sitting on, you know, 1,000 extra boards in their warehouse because, you know, not everybody is Kyle Lenny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank God for Starboard. I mean, they're really doing some incredible things I can't even believe they're able to do. This year, it's not 23, now it's 21 and a half on the sprint. It's an incredible board, too. But, I mean, you can see when does it end, you know, and, man, they're fast, I'll tell you that, and I'm glad they're making them. But, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, and just being around a bunch of sales reps and, you know, manufacturers and designers down here in California, for the most part, they've all had the same kind of feeling. It's just like something has to give. We need to either slow down production, or it just kind of like take everything just a peg back on the business side, because really the people that are pushing the industry forward still, like keeping it alive, are the newcomers, the people that are stoked for just to be at events, the ones that, you know, work out all year to do Pacific Paddle Games and then, like, Round the Rock. But even this year, I was planning on going to Round the Rock, but, you know, it was just the business side of it, the funding, the permits, all that stuff kind of held it back.
Yeah.
A lot of the brands that used to sponsor it, they're not doing as well, so they can't continue to lose money.
Right.
And it's just a hard thing.
Yeah, it's hard to believe the Round the Rock, you know, that's our biggest race out here, you know, as you know, and man, gone, you know, and maybe it'll come back, I don't know, but it's gone. I mean, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was one of the first things, you know, since I was living in Washington when I got really into the paddleboarding. That was like my big thing.
Yeah.
That was like, oh, I got to work out for this event. Like, this is going to be the one. Like, I'm going to try really hard. And I did it 2 years. And then after that 2 years, it was over.
Yeah. Okay, hey, man. So, Kaliko, now you're working down in San Diego. You're at a surf shop. So, I mean, you're seeing stuff going on down there. I mean, you're out there in the field with people. You're seeing this stuff. What else are you seeing?
Yeah, so really we're kind of seeing the death, we call it like the death of the race board.
Okay.
As far as like new consumers.
Okay.
And a lot of people just want like to generally just get out onto the water.
Yeah.
And no one's really getting, you know, they don't really want to spend over $1,000, so it's really come down to a price point thing. So when you have carbon boards that are 24 inches wide and they cost $2,000, it's kind of hard. But it seems like all the big brands kind of push that price, the higher price points, and it kind of kills what they are doing.
Yeah.
So that's been like one of the things this year. It's more people are stepping away from actual race size boards, and they really just want to have something for the whole family.
Yeah.
And one of those things, it's like, well, you can spend $2,000 on one board for yourself, or you can spend $2,000 and get 3 boards and paddles at a lower price on some of the boards. So
yeah, we've had people from the windsurfing era out here, and they said this is really what they saw in the windsurfing days, where the pros were all that really mattered, and the sport really died out. You see a lot of windsurfers now down in Hood River, but they're all over 50, and there are young people that are digging it too for a lot of reasons. But yeah, they some pros that were really working and shaping in those markets said that's what happened. You just focused on the pros and not these stoked amateurs, who are just insane for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've been to our races a couple times out here in Seattle, I believe. Our Monday or Wednesday night races, and just people are insane. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I talked to a guy in Oregon. His name's Kurt Renner. He's been paddling just kayak, canoe, all that stuff in Oregon forever. And he said that when paddleboarding first came out, he said, there's going to be a big boom, and then it's going to die off, and it's going to be on the back burner for a while. And the only people that are going to keep it alive are the people going to REI that are looking for something to do while they're camping, going to the outdoors. It's really more of a vehicle to get you to do to be outside, rather than it's not like a race car. It shouldn't be like your performance expensive item. It's more of like a utility tool to get you down a river, to get you across a lake, to for fitness, to help hanging out. And that's kind of what has happened. And he's an old timer. He's been around for a while, and he's just basically just called it out perfectly about how it's going to fluctuate. We're plateauing as a business, like I said, and it's cool to see that he agreed with what I thought. I thought it might have sounded a little crazy, but someone who's been tried and true in the business, was kind of reassuring that I wasn't too out of line.
No, I think, when I read your piece, I didn't think it was venting, and I think it was very respectful to pros, to amateurs especially, and and I think you play devil's advocate too. You're basically saying, we've got a lot of big brands, and let me tell you, there's 2 big, huge brands that are going under, and I'm not at liberty to say. But a lot of people have already heard it. I couldn't believe it that I heard that these brands are going out of business. I was pretty shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but like you say, you kind of played devil's advocate in your piece. You were basically saying, look, we've got some real strong SUP brands that can't even make it because you've got this huge amount of other brands that are coming out. All these people trying to get a piece of the pie, and it's not naturally happening. Talk about that, this natural progression that you speak of here in your piece, this natural waterman or surfer, how this works, how this industry should be working.
Yeah, so kind of what I mean by natural progression, it was you would go on vacation and you'd see these guys in Hawaii paddleboarding, and you'd say, oh, that's cool. So you go back to Seattle or California, you purchase a board, and you start off on 11 foot, and then you work your way down either to if you're riding waves, or you find the right touring board if you're on the Puget Sound, and it's just kind of you find a good board, a nice brand, and you kind of upgrade as you go slowly. And in the beginning, it wasn't forced down your throat oh, you need this board and you need this dimensions and you don't need this size, and it was very pure. It was you kind of stumble upon things as it happened, and as more and more brands came out, more and more people got into it. It became more of just about business and selling rather than having a good board that could last you for a while, and It's something that, like, I've had boards that are, you know, now 6 years old, and I think if that's kind of well, that's what your standard should be, is a board that has, you know, the right shapes and designs for what you want to do, and you don't have to upgrade every year. You don't have to get the new 2018 before you're even a year into your 2017. It's that natural, just like, okay, I'm ready to move on to another board. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And not having the rush of, you know, oh, there's a big blowout sale, and, you know, oh, Surf Tech is selling boards for $400, and oh, I'm going to go get a board from them. And it's just that kind of feel. It should just be something that it should feel natural, as much as I say that, but that's kind of what I felt.
Yeah, you know, it's tough. People have, you know, you have to make a buck too, you know, these shops. And you know, I know like, you know, Big Wins, which we mention a lot, I think they've really got it down as far as getting new people stoked and in there by offering a lot of classes, and, you know, making boards available to the community, where you're, you know, consigning your board, and then someone else is getting a new board, and then you're getting a new board. And I mean, it's complicated having a good shop.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? What are you guys trying to do? I mean, you're trying to save your own neck too. You know, what are you guys doing?
Oh,
you know?
Exactly. So Big Wins is a really good example of, like, they do it, I think, in the perfect, that falls under that, like, that natural kind of progression. And so you can go and take your board over there and, you know, basically just do a trade-in. And somebody new that maybe they've been on, like, a 12-foot, just like a Costco board or something like that, they have an easy, cheaper way to get into a board without having to spend, like, the $2,000 on a brand new starboard, like, carbon race board. And you know, they can get a board for, you know, quality board for cheap, and they're not having to waste their time with, like, fly-by-night brands. So, like, big props to Big Wins and the shops that kind of have that model of, like, reusing, kind of recycling the boards, and it just kind of keeps it all in the community, and then you're supporting a local brand or a local shop as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, just what we do in San Diego, so we're kind of changing the model of shops. So normally everything in the shop is like show board, and most of the time you don't get to test what you have or what you want. You can talk about it all you want, but until you get on the water, you don't really know what is going to work for you. So what we do is every board that's in our shop, we carry about 25 different boards at one time. You can come in and actually test them out. You can actually test them out whenever, and you can take them to the waves. We're 5 minutes from just from flat water and waves. So whether it's a surfboard or a touring board, you're going to be able to get the feel of what you actually need, and you can decide on the spot rather than having to shop at different brands and different stores without even knowing. So that's something that we're trying to do, is to make it really customizable to you, without having to just guess and buy something and waste your money and time. So
yep, man. Well, that's great, you know. And yeah, it seems like having a shop, you know, is real integral to keeping these SUP communities together too. You know, what about racing? I mean, do we have to be racing to build this sport?
So I think maybe races I don't think are the best thing, because I mean, in Southern California alone, we have something called the Winter Series, and that's like 6 or 7 weekends in a row, where we're literally, you see the same people, everybody shows up, drops in the water, race starts, race finishes, and then you go home. And it's nice because, you know, the entry fees pay for a couple of things for the event, and, you know, they support local canoe clubs. But for the most part, like, it would be, I think you don't need races per se, you just need more like events and inclusion kind of things, because I see a lot of newcomers that get burnt in the race format, and they either kind of get turned off from races, and then they become kind of that soul surfer, like, I'm just going to go paddle for fun, rather than sticking with the circuit of races that there is around. So I think that more importantly is just having events that can be like relay races, just like fun time trials, and have like tandem races, and you know, even if there's places that can support it, just small like wave riding events and things that are more fun, rather than having like a first place, second place, third place prize winners.
Yeah, we've been kind of gifted in our community here. Racing has really brought us off the water in these incredible friendships, and then also doing, you know, the freighter wake surfing and tug surfing, and you know, Rob Casey runs these races out here and does a lot of events, and so we're just real gifted that we've got, you know, that. But you're right, you know, we need a lot of different events to keep these communities together, you know, and to build. We want to build the sport ultimately too. So. Good point. Right. Well, man, you know, yeah, anyway, be aware of this. We won't beat a dead horse, man, but it's just like, be aware of this. I think a lot of people are, and, you know, it's pretty crazy. I go to the Outdoor Retailer show every year for like 20 years out in Salt Lake City. Right. And, you know, you always see new products come and go. You know, skateboards with a jet engine on them, you know, one year, or with knobby tires and a brake the next, you know, and you see all these new things. Do we need this? But, man, I'll tell you, I saw that for 20 years. But when SUP hit, and like, you know, 5 years ago or more, they had to bring out a whole tent. I mean, a whole exhibition area just for stand-up paddling. I had never seen that before. You know, there was paddles that had sails on them. You had a paddle with a survival knife in them. You had a SUP with a tent on it, a Bear Grylls SUP survival, you know, where it had a tent that attached to the SUP. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, which is great. It's kind of interesting that SUP is this sick, you know, that you've had this. But yeah, it's really just insane, the marketing of all of it and all the different boards that came out. And man, and even the best SUP people were really, even the best SUP brands were really struggling, and they still are, even through all this insanity. Yeah, and so I kind of have a question for you. Like, you were at the last OR, right? This year? Yes.
So did you see like a lot of the brands of paddle boards were you like surprised by the paddleboard brands, or did it seem kind of like there wasn't that much interest as much as it was in the past?
Well, because I was kind of surprised. Where did you go again? Where did you go and where you saw what you saw? I forget where you.
So that was the paddle sports retailer show. It was the first annual. It was in Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah, I didn't attend that one, and so it was interesting to hear you talk about that. Because we had seen what you have just seen there, maybe on these local regional shows, I had seen, you know, massively over the last 5 years. Now there's, you know, at the Outdoor Retailer, we do still have the dedicated SUP tent, but it is way depleted over the last, you know, 5 years, going down. Yeah, you know, even 3 years ago, it really blew up too. You know, it was another huge resurgence 3 years ago. So yeah, so. It's interesting for you to see that, because it was massive. I mean, 3-4 years ago, it was just total insanity there. You know, just like a paddle that had a sail that came out of it, or a survival knife, or you know, it was unbelievable.
Right, just it was a crazy amount of accessories and things that could go along with paddleboarding.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I had talked to a lot of the people there. At some of the shows I've been to, and I've been to OR in the past, and it's actually, I didn't realize it took so much money for the brands to get to an event with all of their equipment, and then they have to pay fees and pay their employees, and a lot of times they don't really see a big like return right off of an OR or right off of a trade show or anything like that. So as the hype kind of died from, you know, the initial paddleboard hype, it was harder for brands like to keep going to these shows and being really like extravagant booths with all the different, you know, innovations and boards that they have, because they're just losing money. And that's the thing, like with some of those brands, like I'm pretty sure we probably know about the same brands, but you know, just OG, like just original brands just falling apart and having to stop production. It's hard, it's tough.
Yeah, a couple of brands. One that I really was excited about this last couple years, and to hear that they're gone, that they're getting out of it, I was really shocked. Them of all people. It's interesting too because we make apparel for Patagonia and North Face, all these different brands, Eddie Bauer and Filson, and so I'm always there in a capacity of an apparel manufacturer. And man, people think they can go to these trade shows and they're just going to blow up and it's going to be this incredible thing. And it takes years to build a brand, 5, 6, 7 years to go. And a lot of people are expecting these sales. Yeah, it's no way. And then you look at the most successful brands. I mean, look at Starboard. I mean, how many SKUs do they have? Even if you could make it and you blew up there at one of these shows, I mean, then what do you do next? You've got to have, 6 surf-style brands. You have to have a bunch of race-style brands, a cross-country brand, an inflatable. I mean, and then you're just hiring more people. You've got to hire a lot of people. Then you've got warehousing, and people just don't think this stuff out, and they just show up with these products. It happens all the time.
That's exactly. And that was some of the feedback I got from just talking about the little article I wrote. It was people thinking that I was bashing, but it was really just because I didn't really realize all this stuff that was going on, and I was happy and kind of blind up until about 2 or 3 months ago when I really started talking to people that have been working for paddleboard companies since '06, right when everything started, and so it was just kind of everything was eye-opening to see the amount of money and just cost across the board, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I'll tell you what. I've seen this in the outdoor clothing industry, in the outdoor industry. You have reps, you have rep discounts, shop discounts, ambassador programs. I always wondered, and a friend of mine who owns Pacific. I can't think of his name. They're in Victoria, Canada. And very good friends with these guys, and he's retired now. But he always would tell me, and they probably did $3 to $5 million a year in their stores, and he would always tell me, he says, how many people are actually paying full price for this outdoor gear? Because there's so many reps and discounts and ambassador programs, on and on and on, and we always wondered how many people are really paying, and then everything gets blown out on sale. Or early sales, or how much full retail is actually even being paid for this gear?
Exactly,
man.
I saw that. I mean, I saw that just play out crazy. As far as so what I see this is from paddleboard companies from a long time ago up until now is right now it's 2017, and they're getting ready for 2018. So they've already released a full 2018 catalog. They're selling. Some of them are selling to shops already. 2018, brand new on the market. But the year prior, same model, same construction, just different graphics, is sitting in their warehouse for $400 when they're normally retailing at $2,000 or $1,800, depending on what style of board. But it's crazy how much money they're willing to lose as long as they break even. It seems like everybody's just breaking even, and it's crazy with the amount of actual manufacturers in California. I've gotten to see big posters and billboards for blowout sale or end of the year sale, and it's literally in our shop we just sold somebody the same exact board for retail, and then they are blowing the board out for $500 less. So it's kind of, I think, a pretty big problem if I'm a buyer, and that's another thing of, I think the market is not being listened to enough, and that's one of those disconnects is pricing and how they're just kind of throwing all this equipment out at their ambassadors and sales reps, and they're giving certain people deals that can make them money, and it kind of just circles all back to trying to break even and trying to keep alive and make money. So
yeah, man, it's... Well, man, we'll move on here, but I think, what is that blog, Kaliko? What's your blog so people can see this thing, what we're talking about, this story that you put out there?
Oh, yeah, it's on WordPress. It's just Stay in Motion. So Stay, STAY, capital NMOCEAN, Ocean.
Okay.
And it's just a little play on words, but
Yeah.
just like this is a fun little thing, just so I can kind of put my perspective out on paddling and all the water stuff, and post about things I'm doing and what I like about paddleboarding. So,
well, I
definitely check it out.
I encourage you to keep going on that, and we're going to go over some other stories, as we talk to you here. We're going to move on and talk about you and your life and family and everything. But, I encourage you because, yours wasn't a gripe session. I thought it was a real clear, respectful, caring. I think the number one part in your, if you can only say one word about all your blog posts, is it's a caring that you've developed over your life with all the watermen in your life. It's a caring about this sport, and I think if just one word, it would be caring for all your posts there. So I encourage people to check that out, man. Really, really good job. It caught my eye right away, and it was really good. So
yeah, thank you.
Oh man, you bet. Well, dude, let's talk about you, man. This is so cool that you grew up in Hawaii and then you moved to, our beautiful part of the Pacific Northwest, and, just talk about that, man. Talk about early life there in Hawaii. I mean, what was that like? I mean, man, if you could remember being born even or whatever, man, talk about that.
Oh, no. Yeah. So it's crazy. Hawaii is such a beautiful place, obviously, as most paddlers, surfers know. And really, like, my whole life we've gone back and forth between Hawaii, and it was like 3 months in Hawaii and then go back to school in Washington. Any chance that we'd get, we'd all go as a family back to Washington, and it's me, my dad, and my sister, and my mom, and we were the Washington Hawaiians is kind of what we say. And then all of my other family, so all my good cousins and grandmas and grandpas and uncles and aunts are all back in Hawaii. And that it was just, it's basically like our home. Even though I've spent most of my life in Washington, Hawaii will always be like where I guess my heart is, and kind of just where I've learned so much about the stuff that I like. I've in my life to now, and like talk to people about it daily and work at a paddleboard shop, and it's all stemmed from that kind of respect for nature and ocean that I learned from the very beginning. So
oh man, you grew up on the west side of Oahu, or where were you at?
Yeah, so all my family now is on the west side basically of Oahu. That's Makaha, Waianae, Nanakuli side, and that it's called the rougher side of the island, but I mean it's just because it's like kind of the more native, like actual Hawaiians that live there. It hasn't been really touched by the tourists yet. Hopefully it doesn't, but as long as you respect people, you respect your elders, you come with the right attitude, then you shouldn't have any problem. Just those basic learning basically that you're, for one, a Hawaiian. Two, you have to respect your elders. So you respect your culture, and respecting your culture means you respect the ocean, you respect the land, and you respect that side of the island. And it's like something I didn't really think was a lesson, but it's just like subconsciously you just know that that's kind of what you have to do. So it's funny because I had to learn those things, kind of the respect for land and family and culture, and take that also to Washington. So it was respecting the fishing laws, respecting the water in the Puget Sound. It's respecting the people that, the natives there as well, and kind of connecting that way, which made Washington even cooler than, some people think it's a bummer to be, from Hawaii but have to live in Washington, but Washington's such a great place.
Yeah, because you said, you told me you're kind of torn between that. Not torn, but it was, being a Washington kid and then a Hawaiian kid. Talk about that.
Yeah, so really it's my full name is Kaliko Okamalu, is my first name, and that means protected by God. And it's like every kid that I went to school with, from preschool until high school, they had to ask my name, like, oh, that sounds so funny. When I was younger, people would laugh at it and make fun of it, and just thought it was weird that I had such a long name. But it was, for me, trying to find like that kind of the balance of like keeping all the things that I know like about my culture and like what we stand for and like who we are and kind of like the past of it, but also being able to fit in with all the like American like mainland kids and just having that balance of you know, like I'm not gonna shorten my name. I'm not you're not gonna call me like K or whatever. Like if people question my name or laugh at my name, it's gonna be like my name's Kaliko Kaone. I'm Hawaiian. This is where my name came from. Okay, get over it. And just kind of being proud of being Hawaiian.
Man, that's epic. You're saying that now as an older man. You're a young man actually still, I think. But but I mean, you're talking about when you were a young kid having to stand up for yourself like that. That's pretty epic, man. For your name.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely it's and still, I mean, even today, Hawaiian is still seen kind of as a lot of like they have a lot of negative stereotypes of kind of like lazy, like overweight, kind of whatever, like blah blah blah. It's you live in a vacation place, but I mean Hawaiians are strong people. They're very family oriented. It's just a great group of people to be around, and it's funny because everybody that moves to Hawaii that's white, Asian, black, or whatever it is, you end up feeling very included. People, they don't talk bad about you. It's a very like loving and warm culture. So it was another one of those weird things to have to still, even now, talk about like, oh, like you're Hawaiian. Oh, you must, oh, you probably don't have a very good learning background, or like, oh, where did you go to school at? And it's just something I deal with all the time.
Man, us in this SUP culture, this whole shaka thing and all these Hawaiian words we use and eating poke and all of this, I thought this was kind of hokey at first, and my wife thinks it's funny. And, as I talk to more people in our community and as I'm in this community, we really get it why the shaka and Hawaiian culture is so huge around the world, because of these things. We're starting to learn about the respect and taking care of our environment and being good to our families. I mean, it's just natural. And so, yeah, that's another great thing about SUP is spreading this Hawaiian culture and what Hawaii's about, man. And thank you for talking about your experience there. Man, that's something else, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Man. Well, man, talk about these times, man, when you're 5 years old, man. You're already, you said you're learning about tides and rip currents and respect for the ocean. You're hanging out with Rusty and Brian, Kealuna and Bruce DeSoto, and your dad, who's an epic waterman. Paint a picture of that, man, when you were a 5-year-old and these times when you were young with these people, because they really did influence you. I can hear it, man. I can hear these people did have a strong influence on you.
Yeah, so basically, there's a big group of guys in Hawaii, and it's like when you're in Hawaii, you do everything around the water. So if you're a fisherman, you surf, and if you surf, you dive, and if you dive, you paddle canoe, and if you paddle canoe, you paddleboard, and it's about being versatile. And those guys, like when I was younger, I mean, I looked up to watermen. So watermen are the people that do everything in the water, fishermen, all that stuff I was just saying, and one of the biggest ones was Brian Kealana, and he's kind of like a pioneer of paddleboarding, big wave surfing, rescuing, lifeguarding, all of that kind of stuff all around the world. And just him and his family really just kind of shaped Makaha. And so, most kids look up to firefighters, but I was looking up to people that were catching the biggest fish, and it's kind of funny to think about now, but that's what I kind of held as a value, is like he knows where to catch the best fish. He knows the riptides and the currents that are gonna bring the best waves and that are gonna have the best fish, and they're gonna find the best crabbing spots. And so even at the age of 5, my dad was teaching me all of those kind of the knowledge that he knew and learned from his grandparents and parents in Hawaii. He took all of that knowledge, learned all of the stuff about Washington, and gave that to me. So he taught me about how all the different salmon that come through Washington, all the different crabbing and different methods you can catch, the shrimping, the squid, taught me about rip currents and tides in the Puget Sound and how everything kind of ebbs and flows. He was the first one that showed me about tanker waves. I mean, way before stand-up paddlers were riding them, kayakers. You know, he was out there showing me how to boogie board on them, how to avoid them if you're in the water, and kind of just that overall just safety and kind of respect for the ocean. And that's what I've been basing my life off and kind of chasing ever since then. I'm 25 now, so I've got 20 years of in and around of the ocean, as I kind of say. And it's probably been the best thing I've had.
That's great, man. I mean, that's like from the Bible, you know, teach a man to fish, you know, that's just great, man.
Literally, yeah.
Doggone. Man, what, you know, talk about this, you know, when you were in Washington and going back. I mean, what was your dad doing? Why were there's a lot of Hawaiians in this state, actually, but, you know, what were you guys doing? What brought you up and back? Why were you guys coming up and back here to Seattle?
So Washington, I mean, so Hawaii, just as a whole, has a lot of problems, unfortunately, but one of them is just being really overcrowded, expensive for a family of four, and then just having the accessibility for jobs and things like that. So my dad actually worked for the airlines, and he just said, you know, there's opening in Seattle, and my mom had actually gone to Seattle U for I think 2 years, so she was familiar with the area. So they moved everything up there, and it ended up being a really good fit because it was still by the water. We ended up meeting a lot of, you know, mutual people that my mom knew from college, my dad knew from work, and back in Hawaii, and it just it had the same kind of like small town feel. Very, you know, all the people in Seattle and Washington are very nice and inclusive, and they felt at home. So that's what kind of kept us in Washington.
That's great. And, you know, I guess geographically it is one of the first stops, you know, from Hawaii, or, I mean, it's kind of close, you know, to get up and back, I guess.
I mean, it's one of those, it's on, right on the West Coast, and it's like one of those things where you can get a ticket and it's just like a direct flight there. You know, you're not really stopping anywhere else.
Man, that's great. You know, talk, and now why are you down in San Diego there?
Okay, so now I'm in San Diego, really just because I didn't want to go back to Hawaii yet. I'm still kind of just trying to figure out like everything as far as like having what I really want in a career per se. Like I have a job now and been living on my own and things like that, but I want to go back to Hawaii ultimately. But I'm in San Diego now, just really learning all about from all the different people here. So that's again like learning all about the water here, the best times of year to go diving, the best times of the year to go surfing, all the different spots up and down the coast. You know, there's trestles, tourmalines, all these famous Malibu spots, Ventura C Street, and you know, some of them are left breaking waves, right breaking waves, and A-frames and closeouts and beach breaks and all these different just nuances that I'm just trying to build up my repertoire before I can go back to Hawaii and really just, you know, kind of be more known back in Hawaii. Like I have a lot of family and friends, but I want to be like, you know, a standout. I want to be a waterman ultimately. So it's kind of one of those things that I hold on the highest thing, and a lot of people in Hawaii look up to the watermen, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So San Diego is like a stepping stone up to get back to Hawaii and kind of just be back in front of all my family and people that I know.
Oh man, that's epic. Yeah, that's a great goal, man. And you're saying, you know, San Diego is a good joint for that. I mean, you've got such a variety of water features there then.
Oh yeah, definitely. If anybody can ever come and visit, just email me. I got space in my house. You can come surf. I got a bunch of paddle boards. Really, I'm like 5 minutes from the beach, and you know, in Washington and Hawaii, those would get pretty pricey. But in San Diego, there's all these little nooks and crannies you can find, pretty much waterfront property, or if not, just a couple streets down. And yes, there's never really crowded. You can always find your own little spot. Just big stretches of beaches, nice and warm all year round. So if it's not Hawaii, it's a pretty close second, in my opinion. But
Man.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, you're training, man. I mean, and, you know, your ultimate goal, like you want to ride Makaha, man, on a monster swell, man. Talk about that. Man, are you visualizing that? What are you working on?
Yeah. That's been my goal ever since probably like I was like 6. And I mean, I didn't really start paddleboarding and just surfing like longboards or shortboards until I was out of high school. But it was something that like, oh, like I want to be like, I got to be there for a big swell. It was something that kind of like was always kind of driving me. And like a lot of people in the water world, they want to go to like Tahiti, and they want to go to like surf in France and Portugal and Peru and all these different like exotic places. But really my only goal is to not necessarily conquer, but like just to be a part of a big swell there. And just be, it's the place that means the most to me. And so I don't need to go do a bunch of contests and things like that. Like I just really just want to be good enough to surf and survive, you know, a 30-foot wave on a paddleboard at Makaha.
Oh,
and
man.
That's just kind of the end goal.
Oh, man, epic. Well, man, San Diego, man, what a beautiful place. I was down there in the Marine Corps, and, man, it is so darn beautiful, too, man. And I didn't know about all those different surf features, so that's what a great place, man.
Yeah, it really is.
Man, talk about great places, man. You're a guy that gets it. You know, Rob Casey out here, who we talk about a lot, he loves surfing out here, and you just said this place a gem, man. Washington State and Oregon's a gem for surfing, man. Talk about your surfing out here and why this is such a special place out here.
Yeah, so the one of the first places I stand-up surfed was out at Westport. And that was like, it was just like a magical day, and it was like sunny, the water was warm. I only used like a half suit, and it was just like 4 or 5 foot, just pumping nice, perfect waves. And that just kind of even made me more so like, okay, well, this is only, you know, a couple hours away. Like I'm gonna go do this. So there was probably about a year where I was going like every other weekend just out to Westport. It's actually I think West Haven, the big parking lot and off the jetty there. But as I started to go, I started meeting more people and just kind of doing that same thing and looking to the elders and kind of people that have come before us to go find out all these different spots. And like I guess I'm really not supposed to say all the names of the spots, but
right, yeah.
there are some really good places.
Yeah.
You know, I cannot disclose their locations. They're right along, you know, Westport area that, you know, you can get barreled on a wave in Washington. It's something that I never even thought was real, but, you know, I've been there, I've done it, I've gotten really great rides there, and that's, I wouldn't say like I'm a pro at riding waves, but like that's basically was my only I guess structure of riding waves before I got to go to Hawaii and ride waves, before I got to go back to, you know, come down here to California. And you know, Washington is very underrated. So if you want to be a better surfer, like you can go to Westport and you're going to get good. And also in the Puget Sound, it's something that you kind of have to time and have patience for. But, you know, I would, if I could see one of the tanker waves driving by, I would go grab my board, throw it in the car, drive down the dash point, unload, hop in the water, wait 15 minutes or whatever it is after it passes the basically I have a little marker. Once it passes that marker, I know that 15 minutes from now there's going to be something there and I can go ride it. So just getting that, I mean, in between going to Westport, it was timing it off. You know, I've gotten 3-foot rides, 4-foot rides off of just tanker boats driving by. So that was another way that I practiced and got comfortable in the water. It was falling, trial and error. But, you know, now it's like Dash Point is, I consider, one of my favorite beaches to surf at because people can watch you right from the water or right from the pier there, and it's something they don't get to see all the time. And so it's like that excitement and stoke of people never seeing waves.
Man,
so,
when you come back, when you're back in that area, I'm going to meet you down there, man. I want you to set me up on them tanker waves because we love them here in Seattle. Man, Rob Casey started these things out here, and so I'd love to try a new area there. And that Dash Point, I used to, back in '86, I'd head down there, that Dash Point. Really love that area, man. It's so yeah. I did. You know, it's so cool. Yeah. I mean, the sets out here are like 45 minutes. You know that we have the 45-minute sets from a tanker wave or a freighter wake. I can't believe it.
Oh yeah, it's really crazy. And I saw a video, I think, of Rob. It was just on YouTube. He like had an interview and everything, and like he has it dialed in too. So he's another good person to, you know, really just get you out surfing waves. Like, you think you live in Washington and you can't surf waves? Well, he's done it, you know, and he's got it down pretty much to a T.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And like I would love to go. I've only done the Ballard Locks area like once, and it was like and I didn't time it right. I was still like in that learning stage.
Yeah.
But you know, now I want to get it, you know, go back and get it all, you know, I've got it more dialed in now. Catch some waves over there and try to, every time I go back, even if I go to like Bainbridge Island or any of these other places where I've heard of these like mythical waves. Yeah. And I try to find out what the swell they need, what kind of wind, you know, and just, I think Washington would be the coolest place to have surfing, or in the Puget Sound at least. It's like the coolest feeling to be riding waves in the Puget Sound. For sure.
You know, and getting to these places, talk about that. I mean, that's half the magic too. I mean, what kind of parallels with Hawaii do we have out here in Washington getting to these places? Because there's some epic places, you know, and that ride, getting there, what's that like?
So you mean like getting to the different spots?
Yeah, I mean, is this like, you know, you know, we're going through forests and rainforests. We're taking ferries to get to these. I mean,
Yeah, so actually, I would say that I like the experience of Washington and Oregon better than Hawaii and California. I like having that drive, because if you can get, you know, 2 or 3 people that are just as stoked as you, like when I was going in Washington, I ended up, you know, meeting a group of 3 guys that I consider now uncles and like family, because, you know, they would take me in their surf van, but they used to kite and windsurf more so, but once paddleboarding came out, we all started going. And, you know, they'd take me and, you know, let me go, and they'd tell me all that, you know, all about the different spots, and the driving, the camaraderie that you have and the community that you have, because you have a longer drive to go do something you guys all love. It's crazy, because you learn so much and you make better connections than just hopping on a plane and, you know, going to Honolulu, getting a hotel in Waikiki, and then surfing. Like, yeah, you might have the same size surf as at Waikiki, and that was way easier than going to surf in 45-degree water with a big wetsuit on. But I guarantee you I had a way more fun in Washington, driving to little podunk gas stops and like burger shacks and all these little old town places. And then even in Bainbridge, taking ferries and going to these small places and towns that, you know, it feels like a cold Hawaii, basically. It's all very friendly people, and for the most part very water-oriented people with fishing towns and things like that. So it's super cool, and I, like I said, basically prefer that kind of adventure. And the scenery is so different, especially like when you go to Oregon and there's the huge sand dunes and shipwrecks and all the different harbors and jetties that you can go to. It kind of makes Hawaii, like Hawaii is very beautiful and kind of the best place you could surf, but the experience you get in Washington is just a lot more, like, I think, fulfilling, is what I would say.
Oh, man, dude, you nailed it, man. Talking about, you know, 76-degree water in Hawaii and then our 50-degree water here, man. But you nailed it. Yeah, you're right on, man. The places you drive through to stop to get gas. I mean, I never thought about that, the bonding moments. We just did that. Me, Rob Casey, and Joe Mikulski, we did this last year. Went out to Westport, you know, and then stopping, you know, Rob, you know, as a lot of these surfers out here, they know all these areas, man. They know right where they want to take you. Like, we go to this Schwane's Hardware, which is this massive general store with, like, you know, a 50-foot duck on top of it. I mean, it was really epic. I'm so glad you painted this picture of surfing out in Washington. That's great, brother. Man. Yeah. Hey, man, so you got a connection, and I'm pretty stoked about C4 Waterman. That was the first board that I had ever been on 8 years ago, you know, out on Lake Michigan. And, You know, they
Yeah.
were like the first people on the scene, man. I still have my C4 three-piece travel paddle. I have beat the living hell out of it, taking it all over the world. I love that thing. But man, talk about your connection to C4 and all that.
Yeah, so like earlier we were talking about kind of how important Hawaiian culture is to me, and C4 Waterman was, you know, originated from a bunch of just Hawaiians that wanted a way to make and design boards that they wanted. So it was actual, like, it's not just some guy on a computer. It was, you know, Hawaiian beach boys. All the people that I looked up to were designing boards and innovating, you know, a sport that was so new. You know, officially started like in 2006, and they were at, you know, Outdoor Retailer. Even then, they were the first stand-up company at Outdoor Retailer. And it was one of those things where I just got one of the boards from my uncle, and it was like, this is the board that he used to surf Makaha and surf big waves. And so I was like, well, then I'm going to try doing that. And for the first 2 years, that's all I had was, you know, a big 11-foot C4 Waterman board that I would take to Westport every day. And just using that, you know, using all their gear for probably the past 4 years. Kind of got me connected with some of the, you know, the brand reps and some of the owners and stuff now. They're actually based out of Minnesota now.
Man.
And I got to go out there and see, like, I got to go see all their, you know, there's the crazy stuff that they have, all the different technology and paddles and materials they use to make their boards now, and the designers and everything like that. And it's cool that they're still keeping that kind of, that innovation, the Hawaiian spirit, and, you know, all the boards all have, you know, like Hawaiian designs, and it's actual things that, you know, are made for water, and they have real people that are really surfing real waves, going down rapids, paddling in lakes, streams, you know, open ocean, and they've really just nailed down all their designs and things like that. So that was one of the main things for me. It was, I don't know, a way for me to, you know, kind of be connected to a brand, work for a brand, but also it's still, you know, a Hawaiian culture. It's a Hawaiian thing. You go to Oahu and all these different places in Hawaii, and C4 Waterman's still a pretty popular brand, and they've kind of stood the test of time. They're still going strong. They make a lot of boards. Yeah.
Hey, okay. Hey, so let me talk to you more about this C4, man. So man, where are they at? Is it a regional thing? I'm surprised I don't see them a lot in Seattle here, but it may be more because we're just seeing more race sports. But where are they at? I know they're big in Hawaii too, and the Midwest. You know, Third Coast Surf, epic surf company out there in, you know, Chicago area, Michigan area, Wisconsin. You know, they're big on the C4. But where are they at, man? Where are you seeing C4s?
Yeah, so really, they're a great example of a company that found what the market wanted, and what the market was really doing maybe like 2 years ago. River paddleboarding got really big, and they really focused on the you know, the whitewater rapid inflatables, and having even hardboards in the river, and really attacking that Midwest market that you know, people were still finding out about paddleboarding. Like the last time I was in Wisconsin, you know, there's still people that are like, oh, what's that? How do you do that? Like, can I try it? And that's something, like, in my mind, I'm like, everybody where I live in California knows what paddleboarding is. And so C4 Waterman's kind of pivoted towards the people, you know, they're finding that new niche to get them addicted to paddleboarding.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but I think we're at the very infancy of this stand-up paddle down, you know, in the rivers, you know. Whitewater. Yeah, oh, man, and it is so... You're like, how the heck could you do that? How the hell could you stand up on something? And, man, people are not only standing, they're turning backwards and flipping and everything else. It's unreal, man.
Yeah, and it's crazy because C4 Waterman, they've have a couple of, like, the originators of it. Like, some of the really just pioneers of it. One of the guys' name is Charlie MacArthur, and he's just been killing the river, paddling for probably since 2006, and started out, you know, with a lot of people start out in the kayak, but, you know, river SUP is definitely a big thing that the market should be looking at, and just for any paddler should want to go try. There's a couple of little rapids you can do out at, like, Hood River area, Oregon, and there's a couple places up north, more by Canada, that have really good, solid places that you can river surf and down rapid ride. And yeah, and C4's just had a crazy impact on that market. So if you're not seeing them in like Seattle or the touring side of it, it's because they pivoted totally towards that Midwest freshwater kind of paddling.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, it's almost like a lot of people have likened it to like snowboarding even. It's great. It's like some insane video game. You're blasting down these rapids and you see all this, geography just flashing by, trees and rocks and all that. Man, it's unbelievable. Man, C4, man, to be pioneering, or getting an early start on this, man. These, Hawaiian people, Hawaiian company in 70-something degree water, that's epic, man. That is really, really great. Yeah, that really does talk about their business acumen there, man.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just they've always been kind of ahead of the curve. And when paddleboards were all basically like 12 foot and you could, there wasn't really much design going into them yet. C4 came out with like the first 9 foot, like it looked like a shortboard design. And the shaper back then was Dave Parmenter, and he really just got the surfing side of it so dialed in, and it was like ahead of its time. And like I have one of the boards made from 2007, and people still look at it like, oh, that's so sick, like all the different like all the different little aspects of boards, like the pulled in nose, the concaves, the sunken decks, all these different little details, and they're still relevant, how many 10 years later. And that's why, C4 Waterman has just been like one of the best things that I've experienced as far as consistency. And it's just been a great, solid brand for years. So that's why I kind of look up to all those guys.
Man, I was doing these epic paddles going under the Golden Gate Bridge, doing some really crazy stuff. And all I can't believe it now. I mean, I was on a 10'6" inflatable that was maybe 2 or 3 inches thick, and I can't even believe how nasty it was, being on that little thing. And right after I bought it, this must have been 7 years ago, right after I bought the thing, it wasn't a day later, I'm up at I was up at Third Coast Surf in Michigan. And they said, oh, dude, man, we just got this board in. And this is way back for inflatables. And it was a C4 Waterman, 14 foot long with real nice rocker in it. I'm like, damn, I mean, that was a lifetime ago that C4 put that thing out. I mean, it was an epic inflatable, and it was too late. I had already bought this little thing. It was pretty painful to try to paddle at my weight. And but anyway, but I did get my C4 3-piece paddle, man, that carbon fiber. That thing is unbelievable, man. I have just beat the living hell out of it. It folds up, fits right in my SUP case, and I throw it on the plane, and man.
And so now even more so, they've stepped up their game as far as even the travel paddle. They've made it even lighter, even stronger, and all the different attachment points. They're basically like wiggle proof, is what I say. They've got like the hexagon male female sides, so there's no play in the paddle, and it literally just feels like a regular carbon paddle.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I mean, if you ever want to come to San Diego, we got all the gear. We can let you come out and demo all that stuff out.
Oh man. Who's the main famous surfer there again that started that?
So one of the main guys is Brian Kealana.
Yeah, Brian Kealana. I met him at Outdoor Retailer, and I was so stoked, and he had Jerry Lopez there. They were just hanging out like nothing, and I said, dude, this paddle is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And we got to talking about it. And I said, man, and I thought for the life of me that part of it was aluminum. And he was so shocked. He said, dude, you must have some kind of test paddle we did, man, because this thing is all carbon. And I just thought there's no way this piece could be carbon too, one of the 3 pieces. And sure enough, when I got back, it was all carbon. I don't know how they did it, man, way back then. And he's like, oh, no, dude, that's all covered. But it was impressive that the main dude knew right away what was going on but really wanted to see, Yeah,
that's another thing that when you go to some of the shows now and you're not talking to the owners and designers. You're talking to just regular sales reps, and it's not like I'm talking bad about sales reps. It's just a lot of a lot of the sales reps have 10 or 11 brands that they represent as far as like coolers, paddling gear, and then boards or kayaks and canoes. When you talk to people at C4, it's people that know what they're doing because they themselves actually use the product in extreme conditions. So it's not just a cute girl that paddles in the lake. It's literally a charger who will surf 10-foot waves, paddles down rivers, and has done paddling in San Francisco, paddling in Hawaii, or downriver down the gorge on big downwind days. And that's just another kind of, I think, a credible thing about C4 is just the years of experience that goes into just even people talking at the events. It's just a very knowledgeable group of people.
Yeah, you're right on, man. For sure. There was a lot of folks that said, man, let's ride this wave, man. Who's the people we got to get in here, and they didn't have that, that face of the company or what the story was. What's the company story? There wasn't a company story, so, man, dude, so, man, you got a lot of knowledge about you, and even like looking on your Facebook page, the kind of things that you talk about in that, and you're 25 years old. Talk about the world right now, man, from your eyes, what you saw growing up. It's a pretty insane place, and I guess the world's always been an insane place, man. But what are you seeing? Just from your perspective, so really, at your age and things, what kind of concerns do you have?
The main concerns I have are not necessarily I'm not a hippie or by any means or like a conservationist, but like one of the main things is just the overuse of all of our natural kind of resources, and not just like in Hawaii or places where I live. I'm just Midwest, Colorado, Utah, all these places that just get overworked, overused, over everything. That's just like super disappointing, really, to see all of that. Those are the things that kind of concern me, and I try not to pay attention to like presidential or political things. As really, I'm more worried about the things that we can do right now to help. I want to have kids. I want them to be able to go surf and go snowboard and go to Colorado, go down the river without having a bunch of trash in it, or oil spilling into some of the places, and huge monument, or not huge monuments, but huge like telescopes in the middle of a beautiful scenery. I want it to be something that we can kind of the world just keep everything that we like natural, just keep it that same way. I mean, this global warming thing, I mean, even if it is global warming or not, it's too late to close down now. It's like it's already happened. We're already beyond that point where we could stop. And so, we really need to look at, our future generations, Yeah, and it's something that I think a lot of people were kind of in denial or thought it was so out there to think that, if we could just reduce a little bit of plastic, that it would actually help. But now they're seeing like, oh, okay, now there's like a ban on plastic bags, and they're making some small steps, but it's really just it seems so shocking to me because I was always taught about being so respecting the land so much, but a lot of just general Americans just don't understand how much we can affect just the grass and the trees around us.
Yeah, it's been kind of encouraging to see how communities themselves or states or cities can make a change. They can make a pretty dramatic change. So it's nice we do have some power on the local level. I took my son down to Olympia, and I was almost in tears seeing old, young kids, speaking in front of the House and Senate and different groups down there. It's really interesting on the local level. There's a lot going on in government out in Olympia, Washington here. I was pretty amazed. At least we have power on that local level to affect change.
Yeah, definitely. That's where it's got to start. And I mean, there's a lot of things that people like on Facebook just worry about way too much when, right down your street, it's like you lost the public park, you lost your beachfront access, and it's all because of people being greedy and money hungry, and you shouldn't really have to worry about, you know, the president, because like I'm young, I've been alive for 25 years, but I have never let whoever the president is or who the governor is or whoever affect my day to day. Like, you know, the president's not going to stop me from going to Surf Macaw. That's still my ultimate goal, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to let it affect my daily, in and out, you know, whether I'm going to be happy, or it's not going to let politics and all that kind of thing dictate what my day's going to do. But you know, if there's no more waves to surf, or if there's no more ocean to swim in, that's going to dictate my day. So those are the things that I kind of, in the world, I want to change and kind of hold dear. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, I know you like political cartoons. I saw a couple, you know, and it's like, you know, we don't want to have this deal where, you know, yeah, I'm a waterman in every respect except for fishing. You know, back when we had fish, you know, then I did know how to do that. You know,
exactly.
It's happening in some places, man. There's no more fish in some of these fisheries. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, even this year with the salmon, it almost didn't happen because in Washington there was just a big shortage, and people were overfishing and they weren't being able to populate and go back upstream enough. And a lot of my friends, you know, they had to go to different places when normally you can just go to Dash Point. They run right through the pier right there, and you can, you know, my dad was out there and caught half of what he would normally catch.
Yeah. So
that's one of those things where I mean, there's always ups and downs, so it's not a consistent thing. But people are now starting to realize how, okay, this is like really off of the trend. Like, you know, it's not just down a little bit. This is like, okay, this is kind of crazy. So now that's what's keeping everybody kind of on their toes.
Yeah, yeah. Man, hey, you know, we're running out of time here, but I want to close out our session with, you know, this might be a cliche, man, but when I saw you and talked to you and your age and where you grew up, I mean, you're kind of close to Tacoma, Washington, and you know, we've got a pretty epic history of rappers, you know, and unfortunately, you know, people know Macklemore and that, but you know, Seattle rapper, but they don't know we've got some epic rappers, and I'm wondering if you were affected by any of that, or if you knew anybody down there, or how that changed your life, or whatever. It might be a stereotype, you know, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. So really, growing up in Federal Way, Federal Way and Tacoma, they're very urban places, so hip hop and rap is very very prevalent. So like a lot of my friends, like even they're, you know, super, like what I would say, they're like on the rise as far as being kind of famous. You know, they're really taking off, and it's super cool to see because, like, I mean, Macklemore probably didn't think he was gonna, you know, blow. He was trying all those years, and it took him like 10 years, and now he's big. You know, he's been big the past few years, and there's guys that I went to high school with that are now rappers and hip hop music. You know, before I go out and start, it's one of my music that I listen to, and I'm always listening to like most of my friends' raps too, because I'm from Hawaii, so technically I should like Hawaiian music, like I do, and then I'm from Seattle, so there's a little bit of like the kind of the rock and roll scene, and then in California it's kind of like the Beach Boy, like kind of hanging out music, but then I also just love like the hip hop and the rap, you know, especially if it's talking about places that I know in Tacoma, you know, like using like 253 references, Tacoma Dome references, all those kind of things are super cool to me. So that definitely shaped what I know, you know, about Seattle and Tacoma and Federal Way.
That's great too, because you guys always knew you had something epic there, you know, that local rap scene in there, you know, and hip hop, and now it's really blowing up in some circle. I'm not in that circle, so I'm sure you guys, it's much more pronounced, but I'm glad to see these references and things, you know, now more mainstream. So, you know, maybe that's even, again, this is going back to your reference of a natural progression. You know, you didn't have some promoter coming in there. It just kind of happened, you know, it just started blowing up here, especially, you know, with Macklemore too.
Literally, literally with like this day and age, I mean, even, you know, 20 years ago, you couldn't just post a clip online of you rapping or surfing or whatever it is, and you could get discovered. Like, it's so easy now that, you know, people on YouTube are making money off of YouTube. You know, that's a crazy thing to me, just posting videos, and it's the best time right now to be a self-starter and posting the things that you want to post and talk about and surf where you want to surf and rap and sing and whatever you do, like whatever you're passionate about. it's very easy to get started now. And so I think a lot of the Tacoma, Federal Way, all those people that they're putting all our stuff out there, and it's reaching a lot of people because a lot of, Washington in general is a pretty prideful people, so they're going to, gravitate towards the local people. So it's cool to see.
That's great. Yeah, well, they had that, and they were out before this, too. Like even 2-3 years ago, it was different than 5 years ago or even yesterday. It's really great. I mean, they stuck in there and built that culture, man. It's really excellent.
Yeah.
Well, man,
Definitely.
Kaliko, dude, thank you so much, brother. Man, I encourage you to keep writing that blog, man. I just like your tone, man, and it's caring. Again, like I said, man, it's just a caring for this stand-up paddle, industry. I think one word is caring, man. But thanks so much, brother.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Okay, man. Well, there he is, man. Kaliko Kahune. Excellent dude, man. I am so stoked that he's writing this blog and it got out and got traction, man. But anyway, thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening every week here to epic folks like Kaliko there. Really appreciate it, man. But anyway, this is Daryl Kirk, Stand Up Paddle the World Radio. Again, keep a lookout there for Dr. Udo Juan's book, that we've been talking about here, Cabo and Coral Meet a Kelp Hugger. He's got the latest issue out. And again, it talks about a lot of stuff that we're passionate about here, conservation, getting kids on the water and surfing. But Cabo and Coral Meet a Kelp Hugger. Get on, ask Mr. Google. He'll lead you the right way where to find that. But this is Daryl Kirk, Stand Up Paddle the World Radio. Stay up and stay on that board. Kaliko, dude, you're epic, man. I so appreciate that, dude. Oh, man.
No problem, man. It was good.
Oh, man. All right, man. We're going to get this.
Stand Up Paddle the World Radio is brought to you by Treat House Vacation Rental. Visiting Seattle? Live like a local. Treat House Vacation Rental, 206-255-9770.